All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 160 of Overdose and Chill. I'm Adam Ellington, the Group VP of Commercial at Overdose Digital. And today I am joined by Jamie Cairns, who's the Chief Strategy Officer over at Fluent Commerce. We're live, no doubt, on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, probably 1,000 other channels that Raven is pushing us out on. So thanks for joining in today. And to you, Jamie, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Good to be here with you.
Appreciate it. Well, look, first off, a few people might notice I don't match maybe the advert and some of the publicity that we've done promoting this podcast. I'm actually taking over today's session at pretty short notice from Todd Welling due to a few unwell kids at home. But I'm really excited to be here with you for the next hour or so, Jamie, and hopefully can throw some good questions and keep the chat flowing that's interesting enough for our audience.
Yeah, great to be here with you, Adam. It's a shame, and all the best to Todd and his family. Rough times. Fingers crossed, everything's all good there.
Fantastic. No, I appreciate that. It's just I think a bit of a bug, so no, all good there. Now, look, maybe to kick things off, Jamie, I've done a bit of a stalk of yourself. We've crossed paths a few times in the industry. You've got a pretty extensive career in tech. I was giving you a bit of grief behind the camera before, being in the game for probably longer than I've been born. But perhaps we can kick things off with you giving us a full download on who is Jamie.
So we're still going to remain friends despite all of that, Adam. Thanks very much, mate. Yeah, I suppose it does. Yeah, these a very long time it seems like now as we're growing up. So I'm the Chief Strategy Officer here at Fluent Commerce today. So I've been here for about the last 9 years. So I didn't found the place, but I was very, very early on when we still turned up and made our own desks when we joined the company, and we're really sort of growing a company up. So I joined to start sales as we were commercializing the software, and I grew the sales organization a little bit. And then, as we lent into a kind of partner first motion, making sure that we were supporting all of our implementation partners and sales partners, I set up the alliances business. And now today, I really enjoy sitting in strategy. So I've got one foot in go-to-market strategy and working with our teams and our partners. I'm really proud to still kind of run or have the alliances business under me, but also working really closely with our product teams and our engineering teams around our product strategy and kind of strategic direction in that regard. Before that, I sold software. Had a great time, learned a lot. Spent a bit of time at Oracle. Place has a bit of a bad rap, Adam, it seems. Every time I mention that, everyone kind of screws their face up and goes, "Oh, how was that? That must have been rough. I've heard it's super aggressive." I'm sure there's no smoke without fire. I had a great time there. I met some really lovely people, some lifelong friends. I learned such a huge amount. The amount of sales discipline you can learn from a big company that's got a ton of process like that can be frustrating at times, but for those starting out their careers in sales, I think it's a pretty good training ground. And not just Oracle, but those big kind of sales machines, they're not perfect and they're not for everyone, but you can learn a lot from them. I had a great time there.
Oh, fantastic. And curious then, I guess, going from big corporate, probably lots of process and structure, into more of a fast-growing hustle sort of company at the early days of your career at Fluent. What was that like, and how did those learnings transfer?
So going back a little bit further, I'd worked for the first company I actually worked for was a startup that ended up being acquired by Oracle. So it's a bit like going back to my roots. Not having process and having the ability to go and design the appropriate level of process or establish things. I learned new things as well during that process. I was a Salesforce CRM administrator. I set up process flows in CRM, not something that you would ever get to touch in a big company. So whilst that might not be my dream job, so to speak, it's actually quite enjoyable to be learning new things. I think it's always good to be learning new stuff. So we set the company up and really were designing what was appropriate for the size of company at the time, and that's changed a few times. You kind of have these inflection points a few times over the years when you're growing and you're expanding, the old processes don't work anymore and you've got to reinvent them for the stage of company you're at the time. It's been brilliant to see. Actually, we just had our monthly internal newsletter come out, and every month we have a section around birthdays and anniversaries. and seeing, the folks who are now 8 years, 7 years here as well. We've got quite good tenure from a lot of our people. It's been amazing to see everybody sort of develop their journey within Fluent and do multiple different roles and take on new things when they needed to be taken on. So there's massive differences between that big company time. It's more growth. It's more creative in a small company. I find that you don't have to follow somebody else's process. You just figure out the best way to do something. And sometimes you get it right. Sometimes you stuff it up and then you have another go.
That's how it happens. Probably a lot of similarities with us here at Overdose. I think I've been with the business about 6 years or so. And I think even over the fence at Fluent, I've noticed a lot of the personnel remaining quite sticky. But going back to those, roots of just hustle and getting shit done, there's a different feeling about it. But of course, where you're at today, no doubt, is obviously pretty significant. We see you on the playing field a lot. And it's probably a good point to dovetail then into actually, what is Fluent?
Yeah, so it's nice to start off back where we were, isn't it? And then where we are now, look at what was an Australian domestic business. It was born out of a company called Parcel Point that was a logistics business that had agents in corner shops and news agents. We were looking to really support pure play retailers with a omnichannel offering if they didn't have their own stores and places where you could pick up and drop off parcels. We turned that into software. So that's where kind of Parcel Point and Fluent split. And we have a software business in Fluent, and Parcel Point went along its own path. So the space that we occupy, the niche that we carved for ourselves, and the reason we did it is because we saw that the big companies, those big legacy tech companies, the IBMs, the Oracles of this world, weren't doing such a great job of it, is in order management. So order management, I think I've spent quite a bit of time over the last 9 years kind of reframing it a little bit. It's about managing orders, certainly, but actually a lot of it's about managing inventory. So most of our prospective customers come to us, they've got a more complex business than they've ever had before. And they express challenges like, I don't have a single view of inventory, or I don't have a unified view of inventory. Therefore, it's really difficult to make that accurately available across all the sales channels that they have. That can result in overselling, inventory that you don't have and ending up canceling people's orders. That can be a real loyalty killer. So you get to sell everything that you've got by having an accurate and a really compelling promise. So we drive revenue for our customers, and the way in which you fulfill that order, where you've got complexity around a range of different fulfillment sources. You might have your own warehouses, you might sell dropship products from your partners, you might be manufacturing on demand, or you have a complex assembly supply chain services with your products. I guess pretty complicated to be able to promise against. To be able to do that efficiently reduces the cost of operations. So we kind of play to both of those key drivers and levers that CEOs and CFOs articulate in their business plans. So increase in revenue and decrease in operational cost. So we do that. So before we started off as a kind of domestic Australian business, and we're headquartered in Sydney, proudly so. We travel the world at various trade shows and take our little koalas with us, which might seem a bit cheesy to those based here in Australia, and certainly the Kiwis in the world would be laughing at us that the koalas don't match up, but they're super popular and they kind of reflect our identity. We stay fair dinkum and true to our roots, even though we've now expanded globally. We've got more people outside Australia than in. We've got really, really big and healthy businesses in both Europe, Middle East and Africa, and in North America. So it's been, extremely, we're extremely proud of that kind of growth, but it also has provided a whole heap of new learning opportunities. It's, everything's different, slightly different in different locations. So I really enjoy the fact that I can go out and visit our teams and our customers and our partners in these locations. So spending a bit of time on planes.
Wonderful. It sounds like you and the team have been busy, and obviously exciting to be, venturing into new markets and so forth. I think something you just mentioned before, just around sort of the fulfillment side of things is obviously interesting. It's something that you live and breathe. But I was just curious around your thoughts around dark stores, right? We've seen lots of businesses, particularly through COVID, start to establish dark stores and coming up with a range of different, I guess, warehousing, distribution, and fulfillment type strategies. But what's your lens and lay of the land and what you're seeing in market?
Yeah, we had We had an interesting time, didn't we, when people were having to shutter their stores to people, but still had stock stuck in stores. So I think it was a real challenge for those that didn't have the ability to see into those stores from their online channels. That they had a lot of stock tied up in those locations. We're a creative bunch as humans, though, so we managed to solve for that. Those that had invested in the right technology kind of in advance of that, it was easier for them. But there were all sorts of cobbled together buy online, curbside pickup type solutions put together. So we pivoted quite quickly. But I think there were a lot of learnings from that. And yeah, seeing more and more folks setting up dedicated fulfillment centers. They might not look like traditional warehouses. They might look and feel more like stores. I think grocery did a pretty good job of setting that up in the first instance. They have very intuitive store layouts, which work really well for pickers. Don't know whether that dark store concept is one that I'm seeing hugely in other industries. Personally, I don't know. You might have more visibility of it, Adam, but I am seeing a lot of really interesting advances in things like warehouse automation. So far more folks are looking at warehouse automation solutions, it seems, than looking at a new warehouse management system as such. Receiving goods into those locations has been solved for, I think, for the most part, but looking at how they can optimize picking, packing, and dispatch, looking at how they can reduce error rates and get better efficiency out of that inventory. So I'm seeing a lot there. Grocery seems to be, from my lens, really leading the way with the dark store concept. But I don't know. How about you? What are you seeing?
Yeah, look, I think across particularly FMCG, I've got several dark stores on my drive to work that I go past, and have just seen that evolution of just how the fulfillment sort of hubs have started to change for particularly those larger businesses, but understanding that that's giving in-store customers a better experience in many cases without having to cross paths with workers that are picking and packing in the same sort of aisles, particularly in grocery. But also having that almost hub and spoke model is improving to a degree some of the scheduling and delivery, I guess, adherence to timelines is something I've found myself to be quite an interesting or beneficial outcome.
Are you seeing those in what were previously operational retail locations, or are they dedicated facilities? What's happening there?
So both, actually, but by where I live, there's the Woolworths near me. There was two in the close catchment. I think there was an acquisition, so they ended up with two stores, same logo, several hundred meters away from one another, and tactically they decided shut one of them up, turn it into a dark store, and actually bring in a ton of cool tech. Supposedly, there's some robot picker packers in the aisles now, but that's now become a essentially full footprint supermarket that is now doing all of their
interesting
for the north.
I have just seen what I assume is a trial location, but I'm not completely sure. There's an old service station or petrol station. I don't know, what do you call them in New Zealand? Is it a servo?
Servo, yes, we understand what servo is.
So an old servo in my local town, and I think they have to, before they can convert them into anything else, they have to ensure they lay dormant for a period of time to make sure there's no contamination or what have you. Anyway, it's lain dormant for quite a long time. It's now a Woolworths dedicated drive-in collection location. So no store, no fulfillment from there, but purely as a drive-in pickup location. So I'm not seeing huge adoption from it yet, but it'd be interesting to see how it works out. It's free rather than paid for delivery to home. So presumably if you're on your way home from school or work and picking up the kids or what have you, you can swing by there. So I'll be interested to see how that develops. What I love is people coming up with new ideas and trying them.
Can't argue with that. Now, I might just take a step back to a couple of points you mentioned before, Jamie, just particularly around the place and value of an OMS within some of these organizations. You touched on, operational efficiency or improvements and also revenue as a key indicator there. But could you elaborate and tell us a little bit more around how does an OMS lead to those successful outcomes?
Yeah, so I'll start with the kind of before the buy button journey, if that makes sense. So we kind of split it up into before and after the buy button. Historically, order management systems were seen as a piece of plumbing that once an order taking channel, an e-commerce site or a point of sale or something like that, or a marketplace had taken an order, the order management system would then send it somewhere for fulfillment to a warehouse or something similar. It becomes, I'll come to that in a minute. Where we really lent in and made a point of difference for ourselves was around that pre-purchase experience. So first of all, in order to do that, in order to improve that customer experience, it's about pulling together inventory from all of the different sources within or outside the walls of the organization. So creating that unified view of inventory. And then for all of the different sales channels, presenting whatever is the most relevant to that business availability. So being able to create a customer promise. And that may well be different on your brand.com site versus one of your marketplace partners, or if you're doing sales through any collaborative efforts on other people's sites. So you might want to create unique promises, taking in a great deal of context, either who the customer is, if they've got a loyalty status, what else they've bought previously, if they've ever expressed a preference for buying online and picking up in store or delivery. So taking data from both within our world, but also other systems, and creating the best promise possible. So pushing the availability of inventory out. And why is it important? Our research and our customers' results show that the earlier that you push product availability alongside the product information into the buying journey, the higher the conversion rates. So it used to be that you'd go through a buying journey, you'd get to checkout, you'd check out, and then the order would be sent off for fulfillment. And it's at that point you'd find out whether it was in stock or not. You'd see cancelled orders. It's an unsatisfactory outcome. Pushing forward, so folks then start doing real-time stock checks at checkout. You might have added a bunch of things to your cart, get to checkout and say, sorry, we haven't got item A, and that's pretty frustrating, but it's not a killer because you haven't actually bought it yet. The improvements in pushing availability onto the product detail page further enhances conversion. And then even further up, right? So I go shopping. I don't usually start on a retailer's website. I'll probably start in the Google search bar, right? I get to Google shopping as the heroed links across the top. I'm far likely to click on something that tells me it's in stock, where it's in stock, than something that just has a picture and a price. So pushing inventory availability and pricing up into things like Google's local inventory availability. There's other solutions for that as well. So unifying inventory and providing availability wherever it's sought, but as early into the buying journey as possible, really increases conversion. So that's about driving revenue, driving conversion increases, making sure that folks aren't overselling. One of the techniques used to prevent overselling, if folks knew they didn't have a really great handle on their inventory, was they'd put huge safety stock measures in place. And if you've got shallow depth of inventory, you then end up not selling to all the demand that you've created. So you end up overcompensating and underselling, which is a problem in and of itself because you're not capturing all of the demand. And you also end up with stock at the end of season that you end up marking down or liquidating, so has a negative margin impact. So there's some serious optimization potential for having a unified view of inventory, being able to sell to match all of the demand. So that's really where we lent in. We invested really heavily in the technology platform that allows us to do that, massive scale, to do it in real time, which is very important as you're doing real-time inventory availability lookups during that buying journey. Once the order's placed, then looking at how we can most efficiently fulfill the order. And typically in multi-item baskets, you want to consider things like whether you want to split that order. If you do split that order, into which locations do you split it? What has historically been the smart way of doing things? And I remember we were telling this tale, Adam, not that long ago. The smart thing to do was if I had a customer in Perth and had a store in Perth with inventory, then fulfill it from there. That seemed smart at the time. It's probably not the smartest thing if you can consider all the other factors at play. Like, how many weeks cover of that item do I have in that location? What's the capacity of that location? So, am I going to have to replenish that from a DC somewhere else? So actually, if you look at lots of other factors into the cost to serve in a particular location, the sustainability of fulfilling from any particular location. So it's far more of a cocktail of factors today goes into what is the best place to fulfill or best places to fulfill an order from. So, we look at lots more data today than we ever did before around what the best fulfillment choices are. That's how we make it, either the cheapest or the fastest or the most sustainable, depending on the business priorities of our customers. So it gets pretty complicated, as you can imagine. So sitting at the heart, lots of integrations, lots of decisions to be made. But the return on that investment and the return on the thought and the care that goes into it and the ability to optimize your business over time sure is worth it.
Absolutely. A good friend of mine, Dave Hughes, used to work for one of New Zealand's largest sort of big box retailers. And this would have been many moons ago, but at online retailer, he was doing a presentation to the audience around some successes that they had in implementing an OMS and then working through refining it. And a big part of it was around, optimizing those split shipments, coming up with tactical ways to fulfill from stores and building that logic in behind it. But I think the punchline there was, in a very short window, they were able to reduce roughly, say, $1 million a month of logistics expenses simply the optimization side of it. So CFOs immediately saying, this is bloody awesome, we love it. But conversely, the CSAT and NPS scores that were coming through from customers actually grew quite significantly, because what was previously an inefficient network became rather efficient. Customers were getting their goods sooner, and it really just started to improve that overall experience with the brand.
Well, tip of the hat to Dave and the team over there in that case, because the number of stories I hear, which is about, I implemented one of the older legacy OMSs and I never changed it because it was too complex, it was too cumbersome, nobody knew how to do it anymore, and we didn't want to take that risk. So great that they were in a position to be able to do that optimization. And I think you hit the nail on the head there around satisfaction, right? This is why do this, right? It's to improve your customer's experience, which in turn improves your profitability and your upside. So it's not a podcast without an acronym, is it? Who would have thought that this became one? Reducing WSMO. Do you know what WSMO is, Adam?
Teach me.
Where is my order calls, right? So, you can imagine if you're not very clear about what your delivery promise is, you get a lot of calls into the call center. If you can really clearly express what the delivery promise is, and we're not talking between 7 and 10 days here, we're talking about being very granular about that and being able to keep that, as where an order is moving through its life cycle, being able to keep your customer informed. Also doesn't mean sending them 10 emails about one order, but making it available in a relevant cadence reduces all that calls into the call center and all of that. What is really anxiety and concern on the customer's part, right? We're typically, even if it's the most banal of purchases, we're somewhat emotionally invested. We've handed money over, we're expecting to receive something. There's a gap between those things. Keeping people informed and in touch with your brand and where those things are, reduces that anxiety in turn, reduces the number of calls in, reduces your cost to manage what is essentially, data that you should have available to you. There's lots of different ways in which order management can. I don't think we've talked much historically about emotion and order management, but we've made that link here today, Adam. So thanks.
I can look, and I think drawing from personal experience, I'm one of those sort of buyers. I think about something for 6 months. When I eventually buy it, I feel like I need it tomorrow. And I think that anxiety inducing, or just that eagerness to know where it is, heightens the importance of just having that true insight in terms of when am I expecting, or where is my order?
So question for you, I suppose, given that description, how likely are you to order something if you don't know when you're going to get it? Or if you get some vague window of when you're going to get it? Does it have an impact on your choice, or you want it now?
I'm always inclined to go for expedited shipping. If I can get something same day, overnight, for me, that's it. Sometimes I don't even open it when it arrives, though. So no genuine reason for it, but I like to shop, and then I like to have it in my hands as quick as possible. So, for me, that's always been a detractor from a lot of international platforms, etc. Waiting a month, not interested. So, I definitely understand the value of knowing where my order's at, when it's going to come, and having that experience, I guess, as seamless as possible.
Yeah, given that you've already told everyone on this call that I'm old, we might as well stick with it, right? I was still in the UK. I've been in Australia for 18 years, but I was still in the UK when Amazon.co.uk was coming on the scene, and that Amazon training of user behavior, whether it's strong in your particular market, whether you're in North America, listeners certainly will be growing in importance here, but it's trained us to understand that it is possible to know exactly how your order's being fulfilled, exactly when you're going to get it, to very short delivery windows. And, like it or lump it, everyone else who's selling to the same consumers, which is all of us, know that expectation has been set for folks. So the closer they can get to it, you don't have to be Amazon, you don't have to beat Amazon. I think that's a lot of folks are trying to tell you need to beat Amazon. But you do need to be aware of what else is out there and on offer. And we're being trained to be far more particular, I think, about when we're going to get things.
100%. So curious here, in terms of where you see a OMS being able to deliver value, there's obviously some broad use cases, but what are the types of merchants? So scale, size, geographical sphere, what's the common profile of those that either would just naturally adopt it, perhaps, though, or also those that actually might have some merit in it that may not have it on their radar?
Yeah, totally. When we're looking at who we believe would be good use cases for OMS, we always come down to complexity of some significance, right? So either I've got lots of different sources of fulfillment, or I've got lots of sales channels, or I've got some element of complexity in my supply chain. So I mentioned before things like products that are manufactured on demand or assembled, bicycles that come with a bunch of component parts that might be sourced from different places and then assembled in a store. So we look for complexity. It's sales teams are always looking at, how can I qualify an opportunity? Is it the number of stores they have or the volume? Those can be indicators, but I think you've got to go a little level deeper, Adam, than just saying, if you're big, you're a good candidate. I think it's some element of complexity there. If, real simple, I'm selling pure play online from one warehouse, it's unlikely that you need sophisticated order management to optimize fulfillment and availability. Conversely, if you've got lots of different locations, as I described before, on different sales channels, you want to present availability differently, then that's a really good case. Most of our prospective and current customers have been managing orders before. So they've been doing an element of order management. Most of them probably been doing it either through the capability of their e-com platform or in their ERP system or in their warehouse management system. And the reason they come to us is they've reached the limit of the capability of those systems. They're difficult to expand. They're not designed for real-time availability presentation across lots of different channels. So they've usually worn some of the pain of having a lack of flexibility. And that's when they can express those challenges to us. And we can be pretty straightforward about whether, order management solves for that or whether there's another way of doing it. But complexity, typically, we mostly focus on, the upper mid-market and enterprise tier of the market. So folks have usually got a reasonably sophisticated omnichannel business that they're facing challenges in that particular area. 7 or 8 years ago, I was probably spending a lot of time telling people why they should have an order management system. I think today it's more about, are we the right fit for you? Because they've usually self-qualified that the existing systems that they have don't quite do it for them.
And is it common then in that case, Jamie, do you see others currently with a incumbent OMS partner, or is it perhaps baked within their e-commerce systems, or is it within the ERP? Where are you seeing then that space for OMS to get carved out in the tech stack?
Look, I'd say about half the time we're replacing an existing dedicated order management system.
Okay.
And for the most part, that's IBM Sterling order management. Extremely capable platform that has been around for decades, even longer than me, mate. But it's not the jewel in IBM's crown anymore. It does not continue to get enhanced the same way it used to. Lots of folks are challenged by it. So there's there's opportunities there, and we spend half our time replacing that. And the other half of the time, it's folks that have reached the limitations of the order management capability in their commerce platform or their ERP. More often than not, they're doing it in their ERP, Adam, than in commerce, actually. The business has grown. Maybe they've acquired another business, or they've opened different fulfillment centers. They're operating in multiple geographies, and they want to be able to share inventory across those geographies. That's usually where limitations hit. The ERP's great system of record, not really designed for real-time availability across sales channels. So great GLs, great general ledgers, great for acting as the system of record for order history, but not about that real-time availability piece. So half and half, replacing an existing one and being the first order management system that folks have ever used.
Interesting. Okay. For those that are going through this motion for the first time, is there any particular sort of best practices that you have to share, or just nuggets of info that would be worth having front of mind as they embark through that journey?
Easily the biggest one for me is organizational. Make sure that you have engagement. From asking for buy-in up front is too difficult, because people don't buy into what they don't yet know and haven't yet been engaged in. So getting engagement from a wide range of relevant stakeholders. So store operations, warehouse operations, finance, commerce, executive, across the board, because order management ends up touching or influencing lots of different areas within a business. So I'll tell you, I won't name the retailer, but I sat down around a big boardroom table, and the reps from all over the business in this. So actually the organization done a great job. The CEO was leading this kickoff project, and had representatives from all of those different areas and more around the table. And I tell you, as this started and the CEO launched into his opening address of what we were doing, all around the table, objection after objection after objection after objection. This will change this. This will change that. I had the CEO sitting, explain and say, give the business case rationale for it, and give the leadership to say, this is why we're doing this. This is the upside potential for us in doing this. And, maybe he ruled by fear, but I don't think so. I think what happened was folks got on board with the fact that it was happening, and actually they became the solution to all of the problems that they had identified, because they knew their domain best. So it was, we don't have space to store pick up goods behind the counter. And then 5 minutes or half an hour or whatever the time was later, we do already do reservations. So we do have an area to store reservations, so we could reuse that, right? And funnily enough, the change in attitude to we're doing it, let's solve for it, everybody had all the answers. So it actually ended up being quite a smooth project. But up front, you could just feel the resistance in the room. So biggest one, organizational, for sure.
That leads me to probably to another open question here for you. But I understand when you've got retail store networks, often, their own store managers, or sometimes co-ops where they're, franchised or independently owned, there can be some hesitation from, the collective stakeholders. Can a solution such as an OMS be rolled out to some stores? Like, is this a incremental or iterative rollout that can happen to, gain buy-in and momentum? Or is this a, one big hit sort of deployment that needs to be done?
I'm going to use your phrase from earlier on, hub stores. So we have a lot of folks that will start that way. They'll use a store, and it's not always the biggest, and it's not always the most profitable one or the one that's been there the longest, but they'll use a hub store as their starting point. So they can cover a reasonably wide, if they're doing fulfillment from store or collection in store, they can cover a reasonably wide area. And they'll roll out and they'll test and they'll get some learnings from that, and then they'll enhance before they go big bang. So I would say that whether it's on the number of locations that you roll out, or potentially the number of fulfillment kind of approaches that you take, you absolutely should be doing this stuff incrementally. And having a platform and having a team and having a process that allows you to very quickly adapt is important to be able to do that, because there's no point learning if you can't then adapt. You're fixed in what you planned up front. So yeah, we've got a bunch of people that will do it. We had a company in Thailand started with 100 stores and grew to over 1,000 in the next 18 months. Others will start only doing warehouse fulfillment, and then they'll layer on top of that store fulfillment, and then they'll layer on top of that collection in store as they get more familiar with processes. Training and change management in locations, particularly that are doing fulfillment for the first time, can be a challenge. So trying to find ways that makes that easier for folks is really important. So again, comes down to organization as well, about getting people bought into doing it. It's not so long ago where we had online and stores fighting each other because they were competing for the same customer. I think for the most part, folks have solved for that. Making sure that you got the compensation model correct. So if an order is going to be fulfilled from a store manager wants to make sure that they're being compensated for that, or else you see quite a lot of declined fulfillments in locations.
I saw a interesting, and it might not actually be that interesting, but to me, I thought it was quite a good way to support the change management piece, to get stakeholder buy-in, but also to prevent orders from just sitting there unfulfilled once they've been pushed to a store. So rather than doing essentially a push where the system is saying this is the store that should fulfill, they created a pull mechanism where the store managers or the individual stores could essentially see the available orders that they could fulfill, and they could essentially draw those to say, yes, we are going to fulfill them. And what I thought was great there was that because the attribution goes back to the fulfillment store in some way, those savvy store managers and shop owners, they were going bloody hungry for it, right? They're like, all right, we're going to actually factor this into a part of our business, not approaching it with apathy and thinking, oh, fuck, another order's come in that we need to fill for the big dogs in head office.
Yeah. I'm probably thinking of the same one that you are. I heard the same thing. I don't have visibility into it, but I would be curious to know how it affects that efficiency in fulfillment, i.e. cost, right? So, if you can be prescriptive about how you get an order fulfilled, i.e. where it gets fulfilled from, like, you might have one of those busy bee store managers grabbing orders for staff, but then their store needs to be replenished as a result of selling the last unit in store. They might have a higher cost to serve in that location. Shipping might be more expensive from that location to the customer. So I think, you pull one lever and you get great enthusiasm and you get really fast fulfill rates. I don't know the answer, Adam. I'd be curious as well, right, as to how it affects the other things. But so, there's no one model, and certainly I'm not criticizing their approach. I don't know, it might be the best approach for them, but it always begged that question for me is, if you've got individuals making the decision around where something gets fulfilled from, I think machines probably with data probably do that better, but I don't know. It is an interesting one for sure. So I agree with you.
That was many moons ago, and I think what I did take away is that, again, there was no silver bullet even in that solution. Ongoing tweaks, optimization, etc. But I think the principle of it was that was their Trojan horse to get the OMS into the business as the first cab, and then what's happened probably since that last conversation I've had there, I wouldn't know, but very, very keen to actually turn a
bit of gamification, get people keen to work on it. That's good.
That's the one. Now I think maybe like diving a little bit into Fluent specifically, we've been pretty good here as, with our sales hats on and actually not diving too much specifically about Fluent, but whilst I've got a few people in attendance, that are tuned in, I know that they're going through these consideration sets, etc. But quickly, without a full sales pitch, mate, what actually sets Fluent apart from the others? You mentioned IBM Sterling. I know that there's a lot of others in market, and perhaps without dogging on anybody particularly, but why are you so good?
Are you just going to bring up my 30-slide deck that I can run through in the next 10 minutes? Yeah. No, the reason folks end up choosing us, Adam, is we're the most flexible and we have the fastest time to market. So we've done that because we've focused our efforts exclusively on order management, predominantly direct to consumer and retail, although we have a lot of customers also in wholesale. The reality is that whatever decisions you make today about how you're going to present your inventory or fulfill your orders will change over the next 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. So being able to be flexible and adaptable into the future. Order management used to be a very big, risky, cumbersome 18-month, 2-year project. It was scary for most people. We've brought that time to value right down. So people going live in 3 to 4 months. So that is considerably faster than anyone that we compete with, really. So being able to scale significantly, so those that see growth, that's really where we differentiate on those kind of 3 axes. Folks love working with the product as well. Actually, it's a modern, easy to use product. We get really great feedback about that. It's a complete order management system, so you don't need to bolt together lots of different bits. You don't need to go and buy a full suite where some of the order management capabilities in the point of sale and some of it's in the ERP and some of it's in what they call an order management system. And you don't get locked into having to buy all of those different components. We're big advocates of composable, so we do what we do really well, and product information management systems do what they do really well, so we integrate to them. We don't try and replicate their functionality. Same with commerce. So we find that those that value business agility and that that accept and readily lean into the fact that change will be real over the next couple of years, no matter where a business is in its life cycle, they tend towards us. I think we're doing all right in the market. We don't like to get too big for our boots. We're certainly now, up in the top couple globally in terms of capability and widely adopted by leading brands. So we're really proud of that, but we're not satisfied with where we are. We really, really want to be number one. So we continue to invest in the product to get there. We continue to invest in partnerships to make sure that successful and profitable and extremely capable delivery is done so that our customers get the best outcomes. Those are the main reasons, without getting into too much technical detail about why it's better in these areas and that area. But flexibility, time to value, and scalability.
Interesting. And you touched before around the role that data plays, and I'm curious, and this might even lead into some sort of roadmap or more future states for Fluent. But what is machine learning, AI, the world of optimization in that space within an OMS? Is that current? Is that something that you're seeing or is on the future horizon?
Thank you. We've managed to go 45 minutes without getting into AI, which is a record in 2024, but I think we should, Adam, and I'm very glad that we are. We made a decision architecturally really early that we were going to build this platform as an event-driven platform. So we capture an event, a record around any transitional change or any change in state or any action that happens within the platform. That is a treasure trove of data. We've done that for every customer since inception. So all of our customers have this massive trove of data available to them about the historical performance of their operations. Now, today, that's used for insights and optimization potential. Absolutely, predictive AI will allow in the future the ability to use that data as a source to train models, to optimize fulfillment, to dynamically create safety stock or buffers. So there's a large number of opportunities within the platform itself. What we're also seeing is that outside of any one particular application, one of the key opportunities here is in aggregating data from multiple systems so that you end up with better decision making. So a really good example is, we're presenting availability before the buy button. That may result in a conversion or it may not. But there's a lot of context around that. So we're seeing demand signals that no other system sees. those demand signals, if you combine them with what you're doing in planning and forecasting and allocation, ends up with a far more refined forecast and a far more refined plan. So why is that important? So from a data point of view, you can combine the data from your order management system and your planning system. Those planning systems typically have an element of prediction in them. We're helping refine the predictions for planning and allocation and forecasting. So working with partners in that space, so I said before, like we'll stick to our swim lane, but the data that we have is super valuable. So working with planning and forecasting. So that's a good example of where we're collaborating elsewhere. Similarly, the ability for users, business users, to use a AI assistant, a conversational AI bot type environment. That's not what we're going to focus on. We're not going to tell you that we've got the whizziest conversational AI to modify your application. I think they'll become ubiquitous over the next 12 months. The rate of change in that space is so fast. So you can have far more people like me, right, who can't code, but can write code using an assistant. The key is being able to deploy that to a system that can actually use it. There's no other order management system out there that was architected for deploying customized code to and have that order management system run it for you. It's probably as detailed as we need to get technically on that. But what I think it means is we're going to have the ability for business users to do what they used to have to ask developers to go and do. So you're going to have the ability to create code being much more ubiquitous, but that's useless if you haven't got a system that can run it and manage its life cycle. So that's the opportunity for Fluent in this space. It's absolutely roadmap. It's absolutely what we're working on right now. It's an opportunity to completely revolutionize the way that folks deliver those optimizations and enhancements. And I couldn't be more excited about it.
Fantastic. And in terms of the sort of the 5-10 years ahead, how do you see, besides sort of the AI landscape, but just in general, how do you see the OMS industry as a whole evolving? Is there consolidation of vendors? Is it, altitude and a race for that top spot, or what's your view there?
5 to 10 years. I don't know. I'll be in a retirement home by then, Adam, won't I? I'll be in some kind of home. Now, look, I think what we're seeing is there's definitely been consolidation going on, right? So a few of the independent order management system vendors have been acquired. I think there'll continue to be a bit of consolidation. We also see emerging actors and new technology paradigms like AI provide new opportunities for folks to architect in a way that had never been possible before. So when I'm looking out at who our competitors are, I'm not really looking sideways and up so much. I'm pretty familiar with those guys, and I'm not seeing a huge amount of innovation in that space. I'm looking at those who are currently doing, $1 million in revenue, $2 million in revenue, or a pre-revenue, who are going to come with a completely different technology paradigm. And in the way that we shook up the market when we first started, we rode the cloud wave at the start. We were cloud native, where all the other vendors were legacy technology that were, going into managed hosting environments. That kind of cloud wave provided an opportunity to disrupt a market. So I'm really spend a lot of my time as a strategy officer keeping an eye on those who are using AI to start from scratch. So not those that are just bolting it onto their existing systems, but that's probably where they come from, mate. We're going to have a different race going in 5 to 10 years based on this and whatever the next technology wave is. I love the fact that humans are super creative and will come up with new ways to disrupt. There's a huge amount of opportunity here. The order management system category is growing, depending on which analyst you talk to, 15 to 18% per year. So it's an attractive space. Supply chain's growing faster than a lot of other technology categories. So there's a lot of folks who've got designs on it. I think it'd be super interesting. We'll see some consolidation after we get to the top.
Brilliant. And Jamie, are you public, private? What's the model?
Privately held. Privately held. Yeah.
And is that going to change in future? Any inside goss on the roadmap there? Is this,
nice try, Adam. You'll get nothing from me, mate. No, we don't comment on that kind of thing.
always worth the ask. Well, I think, look, from my side of things, I think we've had a bloody good chat. I've learned a lot. I learned a new acronym, being WSMO, and think that we
don't use it, though, mate. Don't use it.
You made it sound quite cool. So whether you say to use it or not, I'll squeeze it in there somewhere in future. But look, as we look through to the last couple of minutes here, just to start to wrap things up, I really want to appreciate you again, Jamie, for joining us here today. I know that we've got lots of people tuned in across a number of different channels. Keen to see if there's any questions. I haven't seen too much pop through in the comments currently, but a couple of minutes left if anybody wants to get anything through. Besides that, anything on your part as perhaps a final footnote here to wrap things up on, Jamie?
Look, I promised myself and others that we'll not talk too much about sales pitch. I think it was great of you to give us the opportunity to come along today, Adam. It's been a really fun conversation. I will leave everybody with one thing, though. I'm an unashamed spruiker of my favorite podcast. So if you don't already know it, podcast called Acquired, available on all of the major platforms, I'm sure. I have no association with this, as anybody who listens to one of them will immediately know. They're far more erudite than me. You've got a couple of guys, VCs based in the West Coast, one in San Fran, one in Seattle. They do, I usually have a time limit on podcasts of about 20 minutes. That's my attention span. These were things run for 3.5, 4 hours. They do extremely detailed histories of the world's best companies, thinking, Amazon's, Walmart's, Costco's, Standard Oil, Nike, Porsche. They are the most fascinating histories of these companies, where they came from, how they developed. There's a financial lens to it as well. There's some predictions going forward. So anyway, enough spruiking. But if anybody who's interested in business, the kind of financial and commercial aspects of how those businesses have developed, or history, phenomenal. Acquired. Go listen. Everybody that I have recommended it to has thanked me, so hopefully all the listeners feel the same.
Excellent. Well, great plug there. It does sound interesting. I'm going to be sure to check that one out. Pleasure to spend the hour or thereabouts with you, Jamie. And hopefully I did all right with, I think, 15 minutes notice before jumping in here. Gave me a chance to freestyle some questions and just generally have some, I guess, genuine curiosity around your side of the fence there, mate. So
yeah, good on you, Adam. Appreciate you jumping in. I mean, Todd's going to struggle to get himself back in. I think he did an awesome job. So thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. Well, as I'm pretty new to this podcast software, I don't actually know how to end this. So we're going to give a quick call to Raven on the private chat.